Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the overnight action here at MarketStream.live. My name is Joseph Cusick, here with the Cusick Group, securities offered by MoneyBlock. It has been quite an interesting pre-market and overnight action. Pre-market here in the United States, you have the S&Ps, you have the Dow Jones, you have the NASDAQ, as well as the Russell 2000, all in the red. You also have bonds in the red. A very interesting market here in the States on the pre-market, but we're also looking at the overnight action. This is where we're going to take a look at Asia and Europe and just get an idea of what's going on in the landscape right before our market opens. So taking a look at Japan, the Nikkei gained about 1.1%. The yen retreated again overnight, down about 0.4% against the U.S. dollar to 109.73. Now, we did have Bank of Japan Governor Kuroda basically said that they're concerned about the profit margins of the regional banks. They're going to watch those very closely because of the fact they've had such a low interest rate policy for an extended period of time. They're going to watch that negative. Financials in Japan were up about 2.2%, energy up about 1.7%, and consumer discretionary names were up about 1.7%. We did see that consumer staples overnight in Japan did lag. We saw Mazda Motor, Fuji Heavy Industries, and Nissan all gain between 3.2% and 6.2%. EWJ is the ETF that we'll watch here in the U.S. that trades during our market hours, that has these Japanese stocks and many more. Went out at 49.64 last night. The options are still pricing in the potential for this stock to move over the next 3 days, about 69 cents or around 1.2%. Vol is relatively inexpensive in the options. In the Hang Seng, over in Hong Kong, shed about 0.2% overnight. Weakness was in financials and property names. You continue to see that pressure right there, especially in the banks and property names. Hang Seng Bank, as well as Chung Kong Property Holdings. Now, those may mean nothing to you, but those two names alone are about 8.5% of the EWH ETF that trades here in the United States during our market hours. That's why I bring this to your attention, because if these stocks right now, which are basically, they were down overnight under some pressure, that's going to put some potential pressure on EWH, which is the ETF that carries these exact stocks in it. We also saw that the Bank of East Asia, they lost between 0.7% and 3.3%. So we're going to watch EWH this morning, see if that pressure rolls over into the ETF here in the market hours in the U.S. trading day. And the ETF went out at 2078. The options are pricing in around a 34-cent move for the remainder of this week for the ETF, or around a 1.7% move in the underlying. Vol is coming off, so it's relatively inexpensive. Let's see if it actually pops on this latest news with some of the bigger holdings in that ETF moving to the downside overnight. Finally, taking a look at China, and the Shanghai Composite slipped about 0.1%. The People's Bank of China came in, the yuan, they moved their midpoint for the 9th consecutive day. The weakness continues in the yuan, and it's the weakest setting that we've seen since 2008. Now, you're going to have to watch areas of the world other than the United States and some of the European nations that do export to China. There's going to be a little mixed action, but watch Australia, Brazil, and Chile. Australia, you can watch EWA as the ETF that tracks Australia, Brazil, EWZ, and Chile, ECH, all liquid ETFs. Take a look at those. Also watch any luxury exporters. There could be an immediate reaction with this weakness in the yuan that the Chinese elite consumer, that those goods and services would be targeted to, could come under some pressure if we still continue to see yuan weakness. ASHR is the ETF that you want to watch for China. It went out last night at 2507. Ticker symbol is ASHR. The options are pricing in the potential for ASHR to move between now and Friday of about 1.7% or around 41 cents. Vol is relatively inexpensive in the options in ASHR. Finally, in Asia, India, the Sensex is just below flatline. It bounced off of the poor showing yesterday, being down 1.9%. Financials were under pressure. Axis Bank and HDFC Bank. To put this in context, those two names alone are, again, about 8.5% of the EPI ETF that trades here during our market hours in the United States. These actual holdings are represented in that ETF. That's 8.5%. These two stocks alone were down 0.9% for ICI and 1.5% for HDFC. Let's see if there's some pressure on the ETF that tracks these Indian stocks and many more. EPI is the ticker symbol. It went out at 1954. The options are pricing in the potential between now and Friday that the stock could move about 2.3%. Let's see if there's some pressure to the downside. Vol is still up in the upper 2/3 of its 52-week range, so there is an expectation of potential violent moves going into Friday. Germany's DAX has given up right now in its current session, given up about 0.6%. I'm seeing right now. The biggest loser is Bayer, Big Pharma. It's at a 5.2% decline so far in the session. This is significant in the sense that this is 9% of the ETF that trades here in the United States, EWG. Bayer is 9%, and that drug maker basically completed a placement of about a $4 billion euro in mandatory convertible note offering. You're also seeing other influential components like Lufthansa, Adidas, BMW, all down between 0.6% and 3.5%. There is a positive note here. Software maker SAP up about 0.9% today. That particular stock is also 7.23% of the ETF EWG, which last night settled here at 25.05. Options are pricing in the potential for the stock to move into the end of the week about 1.3%. Vol is in the lower third for the options. Taking a look at the UK FTSE, London's been trading about 0.5% lower, with home builders and financials continuing to show relative weakness. Barrett Developments, Persimmon, Taylor Wimpey are all down between 1.3% and 3.8%. You do have Land Securities as well as HSBC, Standard Life, and Standard Charter all showing losses as well between 1.1 and 1.7%. It's significant on the HSBC because that's 5% of the ETF that tracks stocks in the UK. EW is the ticker symbol. HSBC is 5% of that ETF. The ETF went out last night at $30.12. They're pricing in the potential to move about 1% or around 31 cents, either up or down in this ETF into the end of the week. Vol is cheap. Let's keep an eye on this, see if there's maybe some pressure with the weakness in these sectors in London. France, the CAC, down about 0.7% amid broad-based weakness. We continue to see financial names like Crédit Agricole, Société Générale, BNP Paribas, all showing losses between 0.6% and 1.3%. Consumer names like Kering and Louis Vuitton are also down between 1.5% and 2%. And again, that could be based on the fact that we've had currency weakness across the board, especially in markets like Japan and China. One other note, BNP Paribas, that's 4.48% of the EWQ, which is the ETF that tracks French stocks. That ETF went out last night at 23.62. The options right now are pricing in the potential for the stock to roughly move potentially either up or down about 1.5% going into the end of the week. So we do have some decent movement there. That's about 36 cents in the ETF. Vol is relatively inexpensive on that lower third. All right, that's it for the overnight action right now. Gave you some transparency there. Gave you some ideas to think about. Put them on your watch list. All right. Join us at 9:30 Eastern Time. We'll be doing the opening bell. We'll be wrapping up everything that's going on the opening bell, what's hot, and what you're going to need to put on your watch list to potentially invest and trade in today. All right, we'll see you at 9:30 Eastern.